That's it.
Well, first of all, I'm very impressed that anybody who teaches in the junior high school for 8 years, I've always said that if you teach in a junior high school for 3 years, you can sin the rest of your life, you're still going to heaven. So I commend you on that service. You know, what I was asked to do today is just talk a little bit about vocational technical education in Massachusetts, a little history about Shawshene Tech, where I've been employed for the last 25 years, and then maybe we can open up to conversation. Initially, Chris was telling me, well, might be workforce education versus civics education.
It's an artificial distinction.
Artificial distinction here, and I don't think they're necessarily separable, and I don't take issue with a lot of things that's already been stated. But to meet what I was told to do or paid to do here, let me just talk a little bit about the history of regional vocational technical schools in Massachusetts. First of all, 40 years ago, 45 years ago, when I was in high school, vocational technical education pretty much was 4 courses at the basements of a lot of local high schools. People would take automotive, or they'd take machine shop, or they'd take woodworking. Kids who were in the dungeons of those high schools fundamentally had lunch alone, not in the confines of the regular high school students. And back in the 60s, '60s and early 70s, the Massachusetts legislature said, we've got to do something about this. We've got an expanding economy, and we have more than 4 programs, vocational technical skill programs in Massachusetts, and they created 26 vibrant vocational technical regional school districts in Massachusetts. Most of those districts were created because of incentivization of state aid. The state back then actually paid for anywhere between 85 and 90% of the construction of these school districts. They not only paid for the principal cost, but they paid for the interest cost. Minuteman Tech in Lexington, which provides training to students from Lincoln, Dover, Weston, and Wayland, was built with 90% state aid. And it actually forced Bedford Selectmen, some of whom, this is way back when, since I'm on tape, came over in Mayflower 2, actually met with Bill Ricker Selectmen for 2 purposes: to build a modern vocational technical regional school district and to get those kids out of the basements of their local high school. And 50% operation support was promised from the state, as well as 100% transportation support. We still measure ourselves looking at 3 different factors. The first is, are our graduates being hired in the trade in which they were trained, or in a related trade? Secondly, have they been accepted to a post-secondary training opportunity? And we actually do 1-year and 5-year follow-up studies on those students. We're the only, I think, public institution in Massachusetts that actually does a 1-year follow-up. Why other institutions don't do that is always beyond me. This is the type of report that I look at on a weekly basis. Right now at Shawshene, we have 19 different vocational technical programs. And for example, if you look where it says ACR, that's air conditioning, refrigeration, and repair. We presently have 16 seniors in that shop. 14 of them are eligible for co-op, meaning they can go work with a cooperative employer. 10 are currently doing so. And what I've been starting to do is compare those numbers to last year's numbers. And what it's indicated to me is, yeah, the economy is turning around. We currently have 141 seniors out working in co-op experience versus 103 for last year. I look at this because oftentimes we almost have to predict the future. And we were looking at the automotive industry, for example, 3 and 4 years ago. And we recognize that in Massachusetts, half the car dealerships have closed, and the whole technology for the automotive industry has changed significantly. So we decided to eliminate a diesel program, and we did that. The last group of students are in diesel this year, and we're spending $5 million to build a new life science wing at Shawshene that will expand programs to dental technician and medical lab technician, consistent with the labor market data that we received from actually with the assistance of Paul Harrington and Andy Sutton here at Northeastern University. Well, one of the things we do is we measure all the time. I share this information with all my staff members at staff meetings. It makes some of them nervous, but it's a wonderful piece of information. The school's 40 years old. It's home to about 1,340 students. Enrollment's up about 30% in the last 10 years. There are 5 communities that send students to Shawshene Tech. We offer currently 19 programs, and we'll be expanding that to 21. We have a 10-member school board, 2 per town. We employ 9 administrators, 129 teachers, 14 aides, 11 secretaries, 2 full-time cafeteria workers, 5 part-time cafeteria workers, and a partridge in a pear tree. We were established over 40 years ago, and we opened our doors in 1970. We do group students homogeneously in math and English. I always like to throw this up there because one of the realities that we understand is that we do a Stanford diagnostic assessment of students. Once they're accepted, we'll be doing it next Saturday for all incoming freshmen. And we do a careful analysis of where they are in terms of their math competencies and their English competencies. And, if a student's having difficulty reading, they're going to be in a class size of 6 to 1 with an A. And if the student was born into the right family and they're graduating or they're reading post-high school, they're very lucky kids. They're going to be in a class size of 24 to 1. And the teacher's going to have a great time. Students are allowed only 6 absences per semester in terms of standards. And we do not accept parental excuses for absences. The only way we'll accept an excuse for a daily absence is doctor notes or court-ordered decrees. The school's had a lot of success interscholastically. I throw this up because I'm an old football coach that couldn't win a thing back in the 70s. But our students won the Division IV football state championship. We won the state vocational golf championship. We won the girls state vocational championship. We were champions in our cross-country team this year. Just by the way, these are all fall sports. I've put the current boys soccer coach on suspension for a year because he didn't win anything. But our robotics team beat Pinkerton Academy and other places to win the New England Trebuchet Championship 2 years in a row. Our wrestling team last year was second in the state Division I, and they won the state vocational championship for the 2nd time in a row. Our boys hockey team has won the state vocational championship 2 years in a row. Five years in a row, they've been league champs. Our girls basketball team's league champs, and our swim team are state vocational champs. I don't have the spring up here because we just started the spring sports, but this is all for this year. We have over 400 students after school participating in various clubs and activities. The important thing to understand is that school isn't anymore 7 in the morning till 2 or 4 in the afternoon. It's till 6 o'clock at night. Because many of these kids are coming from homes where parents are working, single-parent homes. We know the demographic pretty well. This is right off the Department of Education website. We pay attention to average daily attendance of kids. 1,340 kids. Our average daily attendance as of last Friday was 97%. 97%. And we track it every year. And this is a main priority of the school district. We have administrative meetings once a week, and we look at average daily attendance every single week. And if a student's out more than 10% of the time, there's a report on my desk telling me what we've done to try to get that student back into school. Our dropout rate is amongst the lowest in the state. In 2006-07, 3 students dropped out of 1,260. It was the lowest dropout rate in the state back in 2006-07. The average state dropout rate for high schools is about 2.8%. For vocational technical schools, it's about 1.6%. Shawshene, we're about 0.5%. What's on a test is measured. Our MCAS proficiency has grown considerably because of the 3 things: resources, relevancy, and rigor. In 2005, when they first started to count, 60% of our students scored advanced or proficient in the English Language Arts MCAS exam. Last year we were at 92%. It was the highest of all the voc tech schools in the state. Our math proficiency has gone from 58% to 86%. 51% of our students last year scored at advanced in terms of math proficiency. The percent of disabled students taking the test, and this is important because 5 of our high schools, disabled students are considered students who are on an IEP. There's different reasons why they're disabled, but in the terminology the state uses is disabled. That's why we use the terminology. But 3 of our towns have a 15% disabled population. One of our towns, Burlington, has 11%, and the town of Tewksbury is 12%. And these are the percentage of kids who take the test. If we flip the next chart, in terms of proficiency in advanced, both in English, math, and science, we beat all of the academic high schools across the board with the exception of the town of Wilmington that scored 91% advanced and proficient in math versus our 86%. Next chart. This is probably the most impressive thing that our staff has done, and this is student growth percentiles. The state last year started measuring students in terms of where they were in the 8th grade and where they are in the 10th grade in terms of MCAS performance. Our English language arts score, we were in the 79th percentile, average is 50%. In other words, if a student doesn't progress, they should be at the 50th percentile. We have the 5th highest growth rate in the state behind 4 charter schools in the town of Carver. And we're trying to figure out if the railroad had anything to do with it. Those of you old enough to remember the railroad.
Cranberries.
And the blueberries. And we were in the top 3%. In math, we were at the 63rd percentile. We were in the top 17%. So one of the things we like to do is measure our graduation rates. These are students graduating on time. Remember this, if you're a special needs student or a disabled student statewide, about 62% of the students graduate within 4 years. At Shawshene Tech, it's 96%. Our graduation rate's about 95%. Our 5 high schools, the town of Burlington's about 95.5%. Statewide average students graduate on time last year was about 82%. Our total district expenditures, I just used this to the finance committee, so I threw it up here, John. But our expenditures per pupil went up about less than 15% from 05 to 09. Most of our towns went up about 25%. The town of Burlington went up about 19%. But then if you take a look at, we call this net school spending as compared to foundation budgets. It costs more to run a vocational technical high school than it does a chalkboard high school. And the reason is because you don't have 20 students in the metal fab class, unless of course you want to call them shorty, stubs, or your lefty. And so our class sizes by foundation are different. But in terms of our expenditure per pupil vis-a-vis foundation, the average school district in Massachusetts spends about 118% of foundation. We're at about 119%. Our 5 towns are all higher except for the town of Tewksbury, which is about 108.6%. What's measured civics in Massachusetts history framework? And I'm going to be blunt with you. If because of this whole initiative to test everybody, if it's not in the framework, it's probably not going to be taught. And so one of the things I've asked my staff to help me with is what do we have in the history curriculum frameworks vis-a-vis units by grades regarding civics. At grade 3, there's material on Massachusetts, cities, towns, geography, and history. On grade 5, United States history, geography, economics, and government. Early exploration to the westward movements. In grade 12 is American government, and that's about it. We practice civics a little differently. Because of the engagement of students, 50% of their learning time is spent in a specific program, learning skill sets. We don't have things like music and art. Matter of fact, we don't even have study halls in our school. But we have a Skills USA competition, a structural competition with full student participation. There's 105 students going, for example, this week down to Marlborough with students from a lot of other voc-tech schools in the state doing skill competition. And those things include things like public speech, extemporaneous speaking, etc. We have a National Honor Society with structure, responsibilities, and involvement in the community. We build a house every year for Habitat for Humanity. We're doing our 3rd one in a row in the town of Bedford. And our entire trades cluster is building that house in addition to a number of other things we do. student council and school council. We do provide government courses at the senior year. And we are thoroughly involved in extracurricular activities in terms of debate and extemporaneous speaking. Most important, students have input in what they want to major in during their high school experience. And I think this is critically missing from most high schools. With buy-in from students, there's this civic involvement that they get to pick what they're going to study for 3.5 years. And it's amazing. If a student wants to be a carpenter, by April 1st of their freshman year, they select carpentry and they go to carpentry. And we tell them they have to do exactly what the carpentry teacher tells them to do for the next 3.25 years. And if not, we're going to make them a plumber. And we tell the plumbing students that if they don't do what their plumbing teacher tells them to do, we're going to make them a baker. And it's amazing the kind of buy-in you get from that size population. There's a direct correlation between what they do in school and real work experience, which is in many of our high schools, there's this abstract theoretical approach to learning, and kids just don't understand. And in a serious way, we are the Northeastern at the high school level. That was a shot just for you, Chris. One of the things I've looked at is some of the challenges in terms of getting people civically engaged. First of all, if less than 40% of the students today acquire a bachelor's degree, President Obama wants to increase that to 60% in the next few years. Student loans have become a major problem in the United States. $850 billion in student loans. We passed credit card debt last June, and I read a report yesterday. Almost 40% of all students are either deficient or default in their student loans. Some people think that the solution might be community colleges. I would beg to differ. If we were going to meet the challenge of 5 million more students in community colleges, we would have to increase graduation by 60% a year over the next 10 years. Community colleges are institutions that accept kids and provide access, but they have a very difficult time, particularly in Massachusetts, getting students across the stage. My two daughters went to two great schools, St. Joe's University in Philadelphia and UMass Amherst. And I actually took their commencement programs, and I counted up the number of degrees awarded and what degrees were awarded in. And all I'm going to say is this: half the students from St. Joe's who graduated got marketing degrees, and a third of the students who went to UMass got degrees in the behavioral sciences. And that might be one of the reasons why Andy's son from Northeastern have told us that Massachusetts has the most educated waiters and waitresses in the United States. Civics and vocational technical education. Students in vocational technical high schools in Massachusetts stay in school. They graduate on time. And I think it's because the technical activity is inherently meaningful to them. There's no competition between civics and work-based education, because in a true democracy, if you really want to touch the middle class, you need to have skill sets. You can't live one without the other. And we'll conclude with two great quotes that I like to use all the time. From my friend Benjamin Franklin, who said, "He who hath a trade hath an estate," and from you at H. Humphrey, who said that the best social program in America is a job.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. Why don't we open it up